So a couple of weeks ago, I had 15 people from the crew we were all on the screen together. So it was
Wow.
a whole bunch of animators and layout people, and Brian McIntyre who did co-story, and as well as production design, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a conversation, and what worked well for them and I will do for you is I opened with just a short segment of pictures from back in the day, so it can just sort of spark our remembrances, and then I'll finish and turn that off, and then we can chat about what we have seen. But feel free to chime in while I'm sharing some of these old pictures with you. And also, I was going to read a little bit of a David Edelstein review that mentions all of you. So
Nice.
I will just dive into that. It'll freshen our memories, and then we'll dive into discussion. So I will just start sharing my screen now, and you'll just let me know if you see the Brave Little Toaster poster. You all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That, by the way, that is an original acrylic that I did, and the only place it was ever seen was in the lobby of the Groundlings Improv Theater.
Wow.
And Deanna, I gave that to you.
You haven't changed today.
No, you're going to send that to me.
Okay.
Send that to me somehow. I'll send you my address.
Okay. Well, it's a regular one-sheet movie size.
I love it. I'll take it. I love it.
Well, you guys, I remember you put that in the lobby of the Improv Theater to help draw people to, I think it was the Wadsworth Theater. We were having our first screening ever, and a bunch of press came to it and everything. But the draw people there was this painting in the lobby, and just some of the storyboards that started you guys chatting. And John, I think this was your line.
Why, if only we were all wiener dogs, our problems would be solved. When I made that up.
And Toaster says, what? I actually wrote that line for you, but you delivered it beautifully, and you did a lot of improv in the show. But yeah, that was one of our lines, and there you are performing back in the day.
Oh my God, look how handsome.
Handsome, and this was back at Buzzy's recording studio on Melrose.
Well, you know, I did.
Oh.
The next day, I left for New York to start Saturday Night Live the next day.
Yes.
I just remember I had to record my whole part that day. It was hard. In 5 hours, I was there.
Yeah, and yes, and we'll talk even more about that when we're done with the pictures too. But yes, that was an extraordinary marathon. I don't know that that's ever been done before or since. An entire feature's worth of recording in one session.
But John is an actor.
Yes, and it was extraordinary. And then what happened is, so I was doing my best to feed you lines, John, during that for the rest of the ensemble. And then we gathered the rest of the team once you were on SNL, which happened the very next day. And then I sat in and just fed your lines to them so that they'd have the complete ensemble represented in. There's
very pretty.
Deanna.
Very pretty.
Performing along there, looking very sharp and like going to keep you in line.
Yep. Beautiful.
And Tim.
Oh my God, look at that.
Hello, Lappy.
Yes, studying away there. And there was with Thurl Ravenscroft. This was. He was there for in the ensemble, but this was actually in the singing part. So this was in another studio. I think it was in Topanga or something. And
yeah, I remember that place. It was way out in the valley in Chatsworth.
Yeah. David Newman was on last Monday, and we were chatting about that. His memory was that it was out there in Topanga somewhere. And so, yeah, it was great recording with him and with all of us singing out in that spot. There's David listening in. Yes, we're listening.
My mom's here. She's got to see all of this.
Well, shall I go back?
All this, Mama.
I can go back. Oh, I'll go back. She's going to bring him up.
Just sit here on the edge of the bed and watch this. It's awesome.
I'll go back a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. My mom is 88 and she's living with me, and I love her, and she needs
Hey, Mom.
to sit right
Well,
here.
I'll go back and let you see what was going on here.
Yeah,
John, you wouldn't mind seeing yourself again, would you?
No,
No, thank you enough.
So yes.
That's radio. I'm
Yes.
sorry I got a blurred background, but she's there. Don't worry about
Yes.
it.
Okay, cool. Well, I will just go back through the John performing wonderfully.
That's Jon
Back in the
Lovitz
day?
video. Go ahead.
And
John, there are times that you look like a You look like a singer from the 50s. Like, you're like a young Paul Anka or something.
I look at it, I go, there's my son.
Yes. And then this was with the ensemble with Buzzies. And I think that's Mindy Sterling on the left. Mindy Sterling and...
I don't see, no, I don't, oh, there I am, Mama, look. I see you.
there's young Deanna.
Well, I'm still very young, don't you?
Yes, yes. Younger, as we all
John,
know.
go get your mom, where are you? That's Tim Stackey's Lampy. Oh,
Lampy.
that's right, that's my mom in the background. She's blurred, don't worry about it.
Yes, blurred mom.
There she is.
And there's Thurl Ravenscroft, who did the voice of many other things, but most people know Tony the Tiger.
Tony
Yes.
the Tiger and Vacuum. Ah.
But I knew him from many things with Disney. The Buffalo Head and the Country Bear Jamboree, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
And also singing in the Pirates of the Caribbean and singing in the Haunted Mansion. He was even one of the projected busts when you go through the Haunted Mansion that's singing the
Yeah, he's
song.
got a great voice, very distinct.
Yeah. And he told us all kinds of stories of being with Walt Disney and with Elvis Presley. He talked about being in a recording session with Elvis, and they said, don't talk to him, don't look at him, whatever. So he's in another room recording with Elvis, and he said that as soon as they started singing, like Elvis stopped and came into the room and said, "Which one of you is singing bass?" It was so Elvis wanted to talk to him. And this was little Timothy E. Day, who did the voice of Blanky.
That's Blanky.
Yeah. So I think this is the only one I ever put out publicly. So I think the other shots have not been seen public yet.
He's so cute.
Little one take Timmy.
Yeah.
And the lovely Phil Hartman doing both the air conditioner voice, which was the main voice, but also the hanging lamp in the part shop. So, and here's a little interview thing. I just thought, since we don't have Phil with us today, we'd let him talk about being the air conditioner for just a minute and a half.
Oh, I love
We all know that in Hollywood, things sometimes aren't what they appear to be. Give a careful look and listen to this cartoon.
Somebody untie the knot in this guy's cord.
Why don't you just shut off?
Hey, I'm real scared there, Kirby. What are you gonna do, suck me to death?
You probably think that the air conditioner's voice is Jack Nicholson's, right? Well, that's what we thought until we checked it out. It actually is the voice of this man, Saturday Night Live co-star Phil Hartman.
My best impressions are the ones that are in a similar timbre. For example,
Jack Benny has always been one of my best. And you see, Jack Benny is sort of in the same place as Jack Nicholson. It's that kind of edge in the back of your throat.
You know something? You're a real bright little lamp.
the character of the air conditioner gets very emotional, and Jack Nicholson is very funny when he gets angry. He's so overblown and crazy, you know. So I think it worked well.
Anyway, I loved that was an interview with him.
That was great.
And
Judy
Toll, and she was half the. I think the sewing machine, the two-faced sewing machine that snips about the little blanket. And it was so great. They just did improv back and forth. I had a little line written for them to start and then just invited them to improv, and it's hilarious. So, and the dear Joe Rampt, who's no longer with us either. And but he did the voice of Elmo St. Peter's, the part shop man.
Right.
Was taking class the Groundlings, and I remember he asked me to do it. And Tim says I got everyone else. I don't remember that. I thought Joe got everybody else.
100%. I remember you calling me and saying, this guy saw us at the Groundlings and they want us to come down and maybe do an animated film. And I said, great, that sounds fun.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Actually, I had read some other people, and I'll tell you more about that, but I had brought in some other people to read, and I was just so depressed. and it just sounded awful. And it was like, I sat there, felt like I was writing a really cool movie, and then I heard them talking, and it was no longer a cool movie. So Joe and I were sitting together, and he said, you know, I'm taking some classes at Groundlings. There's some really cool actors over there who I don't think will ruin it like this. So can you, you want to go hear them? So I came with him to listen to you guys, and then everything bloomed from there. You guys were just amazing. So
but I have a question though. You wrote the script?
Yeah, I wrote the first thing, but I felt like Joe had contributed so much. I requested that the producers add his name as co-writer.
Oh, because okay, then. Well, I'm not trying to say you didn't write it, but I was watching this documentary. I never knew. No, this is about a year or two ago.
Yeah.
About John Lasseter, and he said he wrote The Brave Little Toaster. And then he submitted it to Disney. It was going to be their first computer-generated movie, and he turned it in, and then they fired him.
Yeah, it was not this script at all. There was none of the story beats in this were in it. It was based on the original novella, and Tom Wilhite got rid of that and gave me the novella and asked me to start over, because he said that was good for a short film, but not really worthy of a feature storytelling length. So I then huddled with Joe, and so he let me really shake the Etch-a-Sketch and start over, and I just read the novella. And so, I only used 4 lines from the book, and I used one gag that they had developed for the movie that was going to be John's. And then all the stuff like the young master kid was not in the book or in John's thing. The junkyard ending where everything is at stake was not in either of those 2 as well. And the character of the appliances being defined was not in any of them. And the fact that the master growing up is then in peril and the toaster actually throws itself into the gears. So none of that stuff was in the book or in the version that Lasseter was going to do. So he let me really start over with story structure, and then I wrote the script itself, and then boarded between me and 3 other people, we boarded every single shot in the whole film from scratch. So and I've got those in a box. So
no, I believe you. I just remember when I saw him say that, I was like, what?
Yeah, I think he likes,
and then he said the character
saying
Lampy, they cast Tim, and then I heard they were going to have to change it because it was a Lampy that identified as a couch.
No, stop it.
And here's Wayne Katz.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Wayne Katz?
He was
oh my God.
Wayne Katz as Rob.
Of mine.
So once I had added the character of the kid that grows up, then he did the grown-up version of Rob, which I based on Rob Minkoff, who was doing character design with me at the time. Wow. So I had it look like Rob Minkoff and named it Rob because of Rob Minkoff, and it had him voice the going to college age version of the master, and that's Colette Savage, who played his girlfriend Chris. And I actually sang your parts, John, because you were busy on SNL. So anytime the radio sings, it was actually me. And I did a squirrel, and I did the megaphone that goes jailbird. So I was just going to quickly read this, and I'll stop sharing in a second. But David Edelstein wrote this way back. David Edelstein wrote this, way back in the day. New York Post, on the town. But I just love this, so I'll read it aloud. By David Edelstein on Wednesday, May 31st, 1989. The Brave Little Toaster is one of the loveliest full-length cartoons ever made. A buoyant and sometimes melancholy ode to the gizmos that once meant more to us than, as grown-ups, we can unblushingly explain. It's not a dazzler the way Fantasia or Pinocchio, or even the techno wonder Who Framed Roger Rabbit are. It's old-fashioned, low-tech. But the point of the movie, which is based on a novella by Thomas M. Dish, is that simple, outdated objects can absorb and reflect so much more of our souls than their newfangled upgrades can. In the picture's spell, we return to a state when the world was, pre-user-friendly. This is a universe where our most beloved possessions have distinct personalities and needs. The strongest link among the toaster, blanket, radio, lamp, and vacuum cleaner in a country cabin is the love they share for the little boy, the master, who arrives every summer to play with them. And then I skipped a little bit ahead. The look of the characters is rarely more complicated than in your average Hanna-Barbera cartoon. They have broad lines and big round eyes with black marble pupils, but they're mobile emotionally. There's nothing cartoonish about their hearts. And I think that had a great deal to do with the performance you guys gave. By the end, we know them well. Their quirks, their moods, their pet peeves. The stalwart toaster, who acts as the peacemaker, gestures with his black handles, and they always get his or her thing mixed up. So that in bringing forth a piece of perfect toast, he seems to throw up his arms in ecstasy. The needy blanket, always wanting to cuddle, enfolds itself in hastily fashioned arms and mews adorably. The lamp is nice and dim and sounds like a Muppet.
Yes.
The curmudgeonly vacuum cleaner Kirby has a bass voice that's instantly familiar as the one that sang the songs in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Maybe the best of all is the Wise Guy Radio, brilliantly performed by Jon Lovitz, who provides a constant spew of 30s and 40s oral memorabilia, game shows, speeches, slogans, famous sports broadcasts. He calls the brave little toaster slots. The director, Jerry Rees, is a real filmmaker. It's odd to speak of camera angles since technically speaking, there aren't any. Everything is drawn. But Rees has storyboarded the film as if the toaster and its comrades were actors instead of cartoons. And lo, they become so.
Oh, so true. Yay.
That was a nice little nod they gave to our efforts to bring the characters to life. LA Weekly gave us this review back in the day. CNN, sharper and wittier than anything you'd expect from Disney, blah, 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 etc. Very, very good. Entertainment Tonight, sometimes they do make cartoons the way they used to. So we've got lots of glowing reviews. And then just quickly noting the Sundance judges, when we took it out to Sundance, tell me that Toaster is the best film at the festival that year, but they can't give the award to a cartoon or no one will take them seriously. So it'll be a secret. So 2 of the judges told us that we had the best film there. And Disney kills Toaster's theatrical release by moving the Disney Channel airing earlier, which is documented by my lawyer. And so instead of at a theater, mainly came to a VHS near you, but it was beloved and has found an audience. And I have encountered this so much, where it's the yin yang of Toaster. People say, it gave me nightmares, and I loved it. So that's to become a new tattoo logo. I just made that up. So anyway, there we are.
Beautiful.
How did you get Deanna inside that little toaster?
Gosh, but you know what I was going to tell you guys, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, but what I was going to tell you is that you guys got on my radar because I had been working with Brad Bird and Gary Kurtz up north trying to get another feature off the ground called The Spirit. And it was, he had just finished Empire Strikes Back, and he saw that as a big animated feature that was going to change what animation was in the day. We actually spent 5 years, couldn't get the thing off the ground because of a number of reasons, including the fact that due to other reasons, not us, he was going bankrupt at the time. So I resigned from that. And then as soon as I was available, Tom Wilhite called me. I had worked with him back in the day. I was a Disney feature animator, and then I was a computer image choreographer on Tron and would work directly with Wilhite on that. So he called me up and he said, there was this book, a novella called The Brave Little Toaster. Lasseter was hoping to do it at Disney. He developed a story with Brian McAtee and Joe Rampt. He's now been fired. I have taken it out of Disney to do as an independent film, but everybody's telling me it would make a nice short. It doesn't have the story patterns to be a feature. I keep believing it can be a feature. I think you're the guy to do it. So I don't have much money, but I know you've been dying to do a feature. You wanted to make this Spirit and it didn't happen. So I can give you this film and it can be yours. I'll erase everything that came before, except I wanted to work with Joe Rampt and Brian McAtee. So that part became a constant. But he just said, read the novella, start over, develop it into a full feature with many more story beats than existed in either the book or the previous development, and then charge ahead, and we're going to make this independently. So we had this tremendous schedule, and so we only had 4 weeks. I set a 4-week schedule to develop all the other story beats, and then dove into writing and was just trying to stay ahead of the production group as I was writing. And I called in actors to read, and it was just so awful. It's like, I mean, I am the toaster, and just terrible stuff. So I was so depressed, and Joe said that he had been taking improv down at the Groundlings, invited me to come listen to you guys. And so I came down and did, and I saw a show, and it struck me when I saw all of you at work that you were doing the opposite of what those other voice actors were doing. They seemed to feel obliged to add a bunch of novelty to it. It's like, wow, this is about appliances, so I better make it sound really weird. I wanted the opposite. I wanted it to seem relatable. And you guys were used to doing that, where I sat there while people in the audience were throwing you guys ideas like, well, it's like, who is this person? Well, you're a stalk of celery. Well, who is this person? You're a radish. And what happens? Well, they fall in love at a bus stop. And so it was already novel as hell. Your job was to make it relatable and seem like it could plausibly happen. And so that was the magic that I felt like you guys really unlocked. And so how did you guys feel about coming into it? John, I remember you were doing a whole bunch of audition thing. In your audition, you seeded ideas with me when I started writing about like the old radio broadcasts of like
that's because I
Dodgers
like in announcing, and I like all that stuff. And to me, those people were very in the 40s, and they're very their personalities were just huge and amusing, and they spoke. I remember when I was like 18, I said to my mom, I go, why do they speak like that in those movies? It just struck me as funny. They speak so fast. Like, who talks like that? I go, what is that? Hi, Charlie, how are you? Good to see you. What do you do? Hello, dolphin. And it would make my mom laugh. I go, but it was very entertaining to me. And I wished, I still do feel like wish I was making movies then, because I just more. And I was influenced a lot by my grandfather, who had a huge personality and was from that era, and he kind of talked like that. And and so anyway, I think that's where a lot of it came from. I like doing it. And
well, I remember when you were auditioning, you did things like talked about the Brooklyn Dodgers and really put things back in that era, and that just connected so well with that old style radio, and I just felt like it was so
well, it must have been something in the script. I mean, I don't remember. It must have been something in the script though that you'd written that made me think of those ideas. I don't think it just came out of nowhere.
Well, I remember we sat and I shared some of the stuff I'd written with you and some of the storyboards, and then you started riffing on it, and you were just having so much fun playing with it and digging into those things. So then I started writing specifically with that style in mind. Oh. So when I'd write about Houdini, or I'd write about Pee Wee Reese at the plate and all that stuff, I just felt like, oh, I know John taps into this stuff beautifully. So I wrote specifically, like imagining how you were going to do it, because you had just made all of that stuff really, really bloom. And then for the rest of you, when I came and recorded with you in the ensemble, what had predated that was, John, your agent had called and said that you got your big break and you were going on to SNL. And I remember calling you and pleading with you, because I said, I wrote the whole role for you. And so you graciously, said, well, I've got one more day and I'll see if I can pull it off. And I wasn't finished writing the script. So I had stayed up all night to finish writing the script, and I couldn't just write your lines because I had to write the ensemble. So the whole last thing of after the junkyard all the way to the end of the movie, I had to write overnight, and then met with you the next day, and you did the marathon thing.
I just remember my voice was starting to go at the end of it.
It was actually, it was halfway through. 5 hours, and Don Ernst was my editor, and he went on later, did things like produced Aladdin, and we were going partway through, and I just remember you were so full of energy, and you were entertaining me and the engineer and anybody who happened to be nearby. You were putting on a show, which is great. That's your nature. But about halfway through that 5 hours, Don Ernst called me back into the booth, and he said, he's a trooper. We're asking him to do the impossible, but I swear now the energy is getting lower, and if you cut this stuff next to where he started, you will hear a difference. But you're in the booth with him, you're feeding him lines, you don't notice it. I notice it out here. So what do you want to do? Should we end it? And I remember taking you for a walk on Melrose, and it was night. It had gotten dark by then. And I let you know that we were working you impossibly, and what did you want to do? Did you want to try to hang in and finish, or did you want us to come to New York? And I don't know if you remember, but you made up a ruse where you were going to act like I punched you. So when we went back in, you were holding your eye and going, whatever you want, Jerry. And then you did it, and you really...
That sounds like me, but I don't remember.
You did. You put on the whole ruse. You were like, let's do it. You really got into it. And then you told me to do this thing. So I went in, and I did come in, sort of like pushed the door open, and you came in holding your eye, and you stumbled in, and you're like, whatever you want. And then we sat in, and boy, did you hyper focus. It's like you stopped the entertaining between. It's just like, what do you want? And you really just focused in. And
well, that's good. Thanks. I have no memory of any of that.
Well,
I believe you though, because that would be something I would do, is they pretend you hit me in the eye.
Well, and Ernst was just shocked.
I remember you were very
pulled
nice.
it back.
You were extremely nice and very pleasant to work with, and just the nicest guy. And I do appreciate the job still. I appreciated it a lot. It was, and I thought the script, I just thought it was very clever, like really clever. And then when I saw the movie, I was surprised at how emotional it was. And I think I cried. It made me cry. And I go, these are appliances, and I'm crying.
Yeah. Well, I've had other people tell me that too about getting emotionally caught up in a lot of people. Yeah. But you pulling it back together. I mean, Don Ernst told me from the booth that he had never seen that happen before, where somebody you've worked for hours and hours, losing their voice and energy, actually pulled it back in, got the energy back, and pulled it off a whole feature. So I think it's a record.
Oh, yeah, it was. I just remember at the end, I was like, it was hard. But,
and then you're getting on a plane.
If you'll remember, it was 1985. I was just turned 28. I just got Saturday Night Live, and I was just so excited. And it was, what was it, 30? How many years is it? 38 years.
72.
It was
38 years and 50 pounds ago. And I was in really good shape, and yeah, it was exciting. It was one of my first jobs. I just started working that year.
And, we were comparing notes. It was my first
recurring role on a series, on a show, TV series.
Yeah.
Movie with Charles Grodin. I go voiceover to a cartoon. I had to turn down Divorce Court, and I got Saturday Night Live, and those were my first jobs ever. And that was the first voiceover job. That's the first time I ever did a voiceover job ever.
Right. Well, it was the first time I had directed a feature, and a lot of my crew, and there's people like Kirk Wise, who went on to co-direct Beauty and the Beast for Disney, that was his first animation job, working on Toaster Wheat. So for a lot of us, it was firsts. And for David Newman, who did the score, he said it was his first big score as a solo composer. And so for a lot of us,
I just remember, was a really nice guy. God bless him. And I remember seeing Pixar, and he's the voice of the caterpillar in A Bug's Life. And
yeah, it was so great, and so great working with him. And he had wore multiple hats for jobs, because I had him doing co-story with me at the beginning, and then I was doing boards, and he was doing boards, and 2 other people. So 4 of us were boarding. So I would write pages, and then I would hand them to me and 3 other people, and we'd board. And then when I was running out of boards, I'd go write a few more pages. And like the air conditioner scene, I wrote in one setting. I locked the door and wrote that whole scene in one setting to just feed more pages in. And that the Nicholson idea clicked one day, and it's just Joe and I were goofing around, pitching the boards to people, and just we started goofing with like doing the kind of Nicholson thing just as we were goofing off, and it suddenly hit. So I went and locked the door and wrote that whole scene just in one setting, and then handed out pages, and I did part of it, and Joe did part of it, and Alex and Daryl did part of it, and then we would hand it out from there to the rest of the team. And recording your voices to bring all of that stuff to life was just that gave me the belief that the whole thing was going to work emotionally.
But remember, Jerry, I came into audition for Air Conditioner as Betty Davis.
That's right.
So I was not in for a toaster at all. I came in saying, you all, I can't know if I can do it.
Yeah.
You all have a combined wattage of 2. That kind of Betty Davis kind of thing.
Right.
What's wrong with it? It's like, and I don't want to be in this wall. That kind of Betty Davis thing. And then you said, no, you should try for the toaster. And I said, what are you nuts? No.
Well, I just loved your normal voice was just to me the most.
Warm voice. I go, you can just do my own voice. You don't want to hear. What about Glinda? Are you a good Richard? That kind of thing. No. I just like your warm tones, and then I auditioned for Toaster. So
yeah.
And then Phil Hartman got the air conditioner, and history was made.
Yeah. And just finishing what I was going to say about Joe is that I had him doing story with me, and then storyboarding. And then he contributed enough where I added his as fellow writer. Oh, cool dog. And then he was one of the directing animators too. So he switched to animating after that. So for a number of people on my crew, they wore multiple hats, and some of you did multiple voices. So Tim, you did 2 voices. So you did Lampy, but you also did the customer that came to the part shop.
I did the customer. It's it's my not particularly great Gary Cooper impression. And it's like, why are the parts laid out like that? I've got to go now. Which I was actually ripping off an old comedian named Guy Marks, who had one routine where he met Native Americans on the trail, and all these movie stars would confront the bogey and Mitchum, who only wanted to smoke the peace pipe. Anyway, I sort of ripped off that for that character. But speaking of Joe again, the reason why at least me doing Lampy with that voice, was Joe had seen, there was a sketch I did with Tress MacNeille, big voice artist, at the Groundlings, named Skeeter and Babs, about these 2 horribly guilt-ridden Catholic kids who were going to try to go on a date, even though, God was just going to punish them every second that they were on this date. And Joe had remembered it. And he said to me, we were fooling around with things, and Jerry, you were in the room, and then I remember Joe saying, like, hey, Tim, do you remember that Skeeter and Babs you did at the Groundlings? How do you remember that? I mean, it was maybe 4 years earlier or something, right? But I couldn't believe that somebody remembered that sketch. And so I started doing it, and you both were like, that's it. Yeah. So.
Well, and it was that perfect thing of a lamp that thinks he's bright, but he's a little dim, and then ultimately does become bright later on, and is able to think of something to help them get out of trouble. But that innocence, and you would take lines like John, you did you're hanging on the wire across the river, and you had said, well, I think Houdini did this once, if I remember right, they were out of the hospital in no time. And Tim, you say, well, that's encouraging. But the normal thing, you read the script and it sounds like sarcasm, but I asked you not to do it like truly hopeful. So your character is just like, well, that's encouraging. Like you were sincerely thought he was giving you hope. And you just were able to make that play so plausibly, where there was no wink to the audience, like we're goofing off. It's like, I just believed the guy that you did.
No, just constantly saw the light. That's all he.
Yes.
Yeah. I just love that. It was just total enthusiasm and optimism and never give up. And it was so fun to do it. I don't know if
you're
my voice would register.
You're kind of like that.
I'm just the opposite.
And Deanna, the thing that was just so appealing to me about your own voice, because in your role, when you're coordinating and you're directing and you're guiding people and stuff, it's just there is this sort of care of a sort of a shepherd and a caretaker for people that you're around. And I just, that to me was like so much the essence. I thought, well, let's not take that voice anywhere else. It's just you as you has the warmth. And you know, when we had talked about the characters, which was one of the things we did right at the beginning of our 4 weeks, was said, well, who are they? Because in the book it was an ensemble. And I had somebody write a letter just recently in the last 6 months who said, I went to read the novella thinking that I would dig deeper into who the characters were, and the opposite happened. It's like there was much less in the novella about the characters than in the movie. And you know, it was because we added very much specific per character definition of personality, of course. So Toaster being warm, and psychologically, I felt like everyone would see themselves reflected in you, in your chrome. So a male, so there's a comfort. It's like everybody kind of, and of course, in the meadow, there's the poor flower that thinks that you're another flower, and it falls in love, and you can't do anything to help that character, but you can help the others. And so a male would see Toaster and feel a male personality. A female would see Toaster and feel a female personality. A squirrel sees a squirrel, a flower sees a flower. So I just went, that reflection of everyone makes a core comfort. And to me, genuine warmth was key. And I just felt like you are that.
And I was gender fluid before it was popular. Wait, cut that. Take that out. Take that out, Jon Lovitz. Take that out. No, it's
where I got to. Lampy was a couch.
Yes, Lampy.
Radio was a phone.
Yep.
And then for radio, like the constant entertainer. And for Lampy, we just went, thinks he's really bright, but he's a little bit dim. And for Vacuum, we went, okay, he was designed to hold things inside. That's what a vacuum does. And because of that, he has a nervous breakdown eventually. And then for Blanky, we went, okay, security blanket for a kid becomes an insecurity blanket without the kid. So, but all of that stuff just sort of grew organically.
Simple, but it's very clever. It's simple to grasp, but you thought of it. That's what I remember thinking. How that, when you said the part about the toaster and everyone sees their reflection into this, and I just thought it was very clever of you to think of that stuff. I wouldn't have thought of it. It seems so obvious when you say it, but it's not. You know, you created that, and I thought it was very clever. I mean,
well, thanks. And then, you know, the thing with
how do you find human qualities in appliances?
Right. Well, you know, the air conditioner, the thing that had Nicholson click in was not just the sound of the voice, but it was another one of those moments where I suddenly, you know, we're just goofing doing the voice, and I just went, wait a minute, who's more cool than Nicholson? And the air conditioner is cooler. So it's like the essence of cool, and also kind of above everyone else. And that's its function. It's mounted on the wall above everyone else. So with this kid who was not in the original book or the one that was developed at the studio, it was too short to reach the dial. So that, you know, the playtime and playing around with the kid when he was little and coming to the cottage every summer, it never included the air conditioner because it was mounted on the wall above everything. So that built in the resentment and everything. So everything just kind of fell into place. So this person who went back and read the book was feeling so much more coming from your performances than they felt in the book. And frankly, I don't know if you guys saw that, but in the original story, they don't wind up with the owner, and the owner is a grown-up. It's not a kid. I just hated the owner because I went, well, he really did abandon them because, you know, walked out on them. But I thought, well, if it was the kid and the family leaves, then the kid's blameless. And then seeing the kid growing up, you realize how much time has passed. And but yeah, there was in fact, in the book, I saw Joe Ramft and I were in a discussion of story with Bill Pete, and John Canemaker was hosting at, I think it was UCLA, might have been USC. We'll check that. But you know, Joe was saying that they didn't even wind up with the original owner in the original story. he says, sort of, you're out of luck when they finally get to him, says you're out of luck, and gives him to a ballerina or something. So that was the original story. So this thing of treasuring them and keeping them and repairing them and taking them off to college, to continue a life was cool. And I know you guys went on to do other films. I've never seen them, but to me, I haven't seen the 2 sequels, but my memories of
upset. John is
other Brave Little Toasters.
Yeah, there was a
There
was a 2 and 3. There was a 2 and 3. Little Toaster Goes to Mars and whatever. So, and I know you guys had experiences with those too, but I never have seen them. So to me,
I was not in those.
No, okay.
I was not the traitor among them.
I was. That scale plus 10 pushed me over the edge.
But Tim, I remember seeing you cruising around the place, like checking your, back in the day, this was before we had our trusty mobile phones and stuff, but you had a pager. And so you were like wheeling and dealing all kinds of cool stuff, but you would come back and be looking for your place in the script. Where was I and stuff? And it seemed so Lampy-ish, where you were like positive, but you would skitter in and sort of look for your place in the script. And I just thought you're becoming Lampy.
I was calling John to try to get me on Saturday Night Live. That's where I was.
Me too.
Which he did try to do. Yes, he did.
He did try. He tried to get me on.
John is a good friend.
Now, Deanna, Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing, like remembering back the moment, and I can't tell you how many people, when they'll look at the IMDb page and they'll say like, oh my gosh, you're the toaster. That's so fantastic. They just love, or you're the lamp. And because they just love the movie. People really do just love the movie. But I remember one specific moment, and John had gone back at this point, was when we went out to record the music.
Yeah.
And that's when it suddenly dawned on me, when I heard that song, City of Light, and we're rehearsing for it, it just dawned on me like, wait a second, this thing is really special. I mean, it was good and it was fun, but this is a whole other level. This is like classic Disney, great, simple anime, like Fox and Friends. And because of the music, it's so, it's going to take it to another level. And I think it did. Okay. I just said it a lot.
Yeah. And I think that expressing musically what was going on in the story, and we didn't overdo it. We only had 4 songs, I think, but there was a sweetness that happened because of that. And, I think in B-Movie, the City of Light, I think set a real wonderful goal and sort of set their relationships between the characters.
Perfect.
But then in B-Movie, even during the scariness of it, there was there goes the sun, here comes the night. Somebody, turn on the light. Somebody tell me that fate has been kind, and it's just the characters longing for hope with all the stuff they're going through. And so there was just an emotional expression there in the music as well. And David Newman's score, I mean, he was feeling the movie through all your performances and the visuals that we were giving him. And when he arranged the music and then was doing the score, he brought echoes of the songs that Van Dyke Parks had written into the score. And he also last week was talking about that moment in where City of Light has been played, but then the team actually arrives there at the hilltop where they look down and see the city in the distance. And he was saying, he said, I think Lampy went, Yahoo! When they were heading for the city. And I think he was right that he was doing that. But he just said when he got to compose the City of Light sort of reprise during that scene, that he felt also like there was something really special going on with this.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys gotten, because we got a lot of this, Deanna and I did a Q&A at Cal State Northridge a few years ago, and it was the first time, Deanna, I don't know if you remember this, but it was the first time I had heard, I think you had heard, people calling the film dark.
Right. The clown scene.
They used it a lot. They said, yeah, this was really a dark movie, but they liked it, but they felt it was really dark, and we were saying we didn't really.
Sent me some crazy thing. What was that thing you sent me, Tim? Some guy analyzing the movie, and it was like,
yes,
it was insane.
Yes, yeah, it was insane. But you see a lot of comments like, "This movie freaked me out. I can't take it." Basically what you had earlier, Jerry. I loved it. It freaked me out. You know, it's like, really? I find it so sweet and endearing.
Yeah, but what was that thing you sent me? The guy said it was like a Nazi or some it was a
well, I think one thing that confused
propaganda. I mean, and this stood for this, and this stood for this. It was insane.
I think one thing that confused people is it was like, packaged by Disney as overtly as a kids movie. I wasn't making a kids movie. I was making a movie, and
that's why all of us. That's why we did.
All of us who were making it were in our 20s, and we were trying to get our first thing done, and so we just did a film that we felt connected with us. And by the way, a couple people involved with the film from the funding side had said, "Oh, just prep some stuff and send it overseas and something will come back." And I said, "No, we're making a film here." It's like this. I was starving to make a film. So this was a chance to make something that we would all care about and be proud of. So I wasn't about to just send something overseas and have whatever come back that I didn't know and just write it off as a gig where I got some pay. And so a lot of us really cared, but the fact that it was supposed to go out in the theaters first, and Skouras Films was going to be the distributor who did art house releases, right? And they got it. They said, this is a college and young adult film, so we're going to not even worry about family matinees and just do it, right? So they got it. But when it was the release date was moved up on the Disney Channel, and that killed the theatrical release, they packaged it as a kiddie babysitter movie. And I think there were things that we had made genuinely emotionally believable and dramatic, like sinking in the quicksand and stuff, that was not kiddie. It was whole family dramatic movie kind of moment. And you guys,
why did they kill the theatrical release? I remember that. I thought they bought it and put it on cable.
They were one of the investors. And so Tom Will, when he took it outside of Disney, had really looked around for investors, and TDK Core Company was one of them, the tape company. So that's why in one of the scenes in the movie, I personally drew in the TDK logo. So you look at it because they invested money to try to get us to make our movie. But Disney was one of the investors, and they didn't own theatrical at all. And they didn't own merchandising, but they had cable rights and home video. That was all they owned. And when we got the reviews that I just read to you, like the David Edelstein one and LA Weekly, et cetera, CNN and Entertainment Tonight, et cetera, was praising it, and it was competition to Disney. So at that time, it was seen as something that was independently made and was going to be released in theaters. And it was competing with Disney and had really good reviews that were better than the reviews happening at the time, with things like Cauldron was being made and stuff. So their chess move to move up the date and put it on the cable channel, then they called it a Disney Discovery, and suddenly all those reviews, glowing reviews, were Disney reviews instead of a competitor's reviews. So it was a clever chess move, and so they got rid of the competition. And I actually had a one-on-one conversation with Katzenberg about that. We were on the phone together, and I was asking him to please, that they heard that I was taking it to Sundance, and then they moved up the date on the channel to snuff out the hopes for the release. I actually had Skouras and the Disney Channel with a lawyer between them trying to work it out. But once they had moved it up, they printed the announcements and wouldn't move the date. But it was, Jeffrey was like, "Yeah, we don't want to stand in your way, kid." And I said, "But you are." But it was a brilliant chess move on their part. So most people thought it was a Disney thing. So all those glowing reviews belonged to Disney. But then over time, it found an audience. I was so glad that happened. But now there's this thing where people thought it was a Disney-made sort of direct-to-cable babysitter kids movie, and instead it was this theatrical young adult college movie that we had made for ourselves that had more dramatic elements. So I think that thing of it scared the crap out of me, but I loved it, happened because parents were just handing it to kids going, oh, here's a little thing for you to watch while I'm busy. And we had scary things in it. So I just wondered if people had talked to you guys about the dark film.
Not me.
No, just I remember the article. I couldn't find it. I just looked for it. I sent it to John because it was crazy. It was like, what movie did you see, buddy? But I have seen comments, and I have, talking to younger people every once in a while, they'll say like, oh my God, that movie's freaked me out. It kept me up at night. Really?
Right.
But maybe that's good.
Well, there's things like when they're sinking in the quicksand, and Deanna, I remember when you and Timothy E. Day were performing the part of the scene where, Blanky's about to be pulled under and Toaster's going, please untie yourself. And it's very dramatic. And the last thing Blanky says before he goes under is, I'm not scared. And he says it with a quiver in his voice, I'm not scared. And has a quaky voice, and then goes under. And that was, Timothy knew when he was performing it, it's like, you're about to die, and you're saying this because you don't want Toaster to feel bad when you go under. And so that those emotional dynamics were definitely at play.
What I hear most is that movie was my childhood, which is awesome. Yeah. And it's like, oh, thank you so much. Yes. And then they'll say, but the clown. And then they'll go,
yeah, somebody.
Run.
I remember one guy on a cable reviewed it. What was his name? And he was like, oh, this movie scared me and gave me night. Desmond Germain, I think it was.
I read one guy that said it was Blade Runner for kids.
This guy, he was like, he fell in love with the air conditioner. He was a fucking take it home and wood. And
well, you know what? But here's the thing that I think
that was it. And he gave it a review. It was a very interesting movie.
Well, something I want you guys to know is that I've gotten so many letters over the last maybe 8 years. And it's typically what happens is people were handed it as kids, and now they're grown up. Mm-hmm. And they either at a point where they're sharing it with their kids, or typically what happened, like when we went out to Cal State Northridge, Deanna, they had rediscovered it in college. Right. So they're like, oh, I saw this thing. It's called The Brave Little Toaster when I was a kid. Hey, you want to go get a 12-pack and watch it for old time's sake? And then they would go back to the dorm and watch it and go like, holy crap, this is has stuff that I relate to at my age. And I said, well, yeah, because we were your age when we made it. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten so many letters, and I've read some of them to Rebecca, who was, Rebecca Rees, my wife, was involved from the early stages with experimental animation, and she was one of the directing animators. We met at Disney, and then we both went on this adventure together. And I've read some of these letters to her where people would get in touch to say, like, I took my family through tough times. We were at a homeless shelter, and they would play this movie periodically, and it would give us hope that we'd get through the swamp and make it out the other side. There's been multiple autistic people at different shades of autism that have gotten in touch and really eloquently talked about how it helped them process emotional things in a much more meaningful way than a lot of other things could. And very recently, in the last few weeks, got a really long, heartfelt one about somebody who went to seek out help that was very, very helpful for feelings that were all pent up because of watching this movie. And partly, and this was what it was really interesting in the letter, is it attributed the film itself and what the characters went through as igniting this search for hope and more meaning, but said that going to my website and seeing all of us working together on it, that they said they felt that sense of joy in making something worthwhile together, like they got that vibe from our whole team. And so they attributed that to part of why they were connecting with it, and said it was helping them out. And then just people writing that they got into the business because they watched it and they fell in love with filmmaking or animation or doing voice work. And so it's just been an outpouring, especially in the last 8 years, about where it's just been so many people connecting with it and writing about it that I didn't expect. There was a long period where, we didn't get our theatrical release. It went out to home video. And I must admit, I was going to video stores and occasionally taking it out from behind and putting it in front of Jungle Book or something to see, so people would be sure to buy it. And then there was like nobody writing or getting in touch at all. And then recently there's just been an avalanche of people getting in touch, and a lot of them quite young. So
very good.
And I just was, the reality that you guys brought to it, I think, is a key, that you made the characters always believe their world. And so that's a critical part of it. I think that you guys never did sort of a wink to the audience that this was all pretend. You completely believed the world you were in. And
you also let us, Jerry, you did let us improvise and especially sort of, not so much with jokes. Jon was able to get a bunch of stuff in, a lot funny lines from radio and the war and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But talking at least for Lampy, like they were sort of, it was all character generated. There was little words in here and there that just furthered the character more, not jokes so much. And I think the same with Deanna and I'm assuming everybody else. It was all character stuff, which was great. It just held true.
Yeah, I remember you telling me to improvise.
Go ahead. But that's what the Groundlings emphasizes, is character and coming from a real place and being honest and true, and not just a big cartoony joke meister. Those don't fly. You had to ground your scenes and your sketches and your characters and your improv in something real, and then it took flight. And you saw that and brought us in. And
yes, I was, like I was saying, people would try to throw you guys impossibly novel stuff, but you guys would inevitably build something believable out of that novel stuff. And that was like finding the relatability, finding the heart, finding the character at the center of it.
That's training.
Tim, I remember when in the tent scene, when the characters are relaxing for the night, Blanky has made a little tent for you guys to relax in, and radio plays the sign off, completing our day, and then your character, and that's where you did a lot of this riffing. And I've seen it with audiences, and I think we were at the Chinese theater for a reunion a few years ago and played it with the audience. People really get so engaged with that moment where your character is trying to figure out what's going on with Toaster being so nice to Blanky all of a sudden, and like really protecting Blanky and taking, and just you're searching, and you would repeat things. And
hey, what's going on?
Yeah. And so, and your little repeat things, and you introduce that thing of where you would say something more than once, but it had a certain little character quality to it where it felt real.
It was very fun to do, because it just gave you, again, you go into the character and let that dictate it, but repeating things was really fun. You could just say like, hey, what do you mean? What do you mean? Just whatever came out. It was super fun to do that.
And then after all that heartfelt stuff, just go, good night, Slothead, boom, and like put.
Yeah, good night, Slothead.
And I must say, you're finding the sound for your character's head, Lampy's head, was the hardest problem, because I did everything Foley. I didn't do anything from sound libraries, because that's part of what makes the film, I think, feel kind of in its own space and not part of something else. But I couldn't find the sound of the head, which was like appealing but a little bit dim, but without being too cartoony, clunky and everything. And I finally found something just in our own kitchen. But I went all over Los Angeles to little secondhand shops and stuff with a pencil, and was just tapping things, and was just like, and people would come running up to me and the editorial assistant like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, we're not interested in this lamp because of how it looks. I'm trying to see how it sounds. And then we'd explain we're making a movie. But it was finally a pot lid that we had that was like in a little enamel pot lid. And that one lid, out of everything I looked around in LA for, hundreds and hundreds of things, had the right sound. So, finding all those little things that just made your characters complete was part of the fun.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Wonderful.
So do you guys have you made yourselves available to be contacted for fans that are getting in touch for fan letters for this and stuff?
I'm on Twitter. I mean,
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Every once in a while I get something.
That real Jon Lovitz. But I was supposed to say, Tim, when he said improvising, the one line I remember was something about, and I couldn't believe you left it in.
Yeah.
Jerry left it in. I was like, wait, he left that in. It was something like, he's up a tree like a squirrel. A squirrel. A ball, something a ball.
Like little rats with no hair and one leg. I think
Hair's all gone and some weird line I just stopped in my head. And you left it in.
They're trapped here like rats, little rats with no hair and one leg, I think was the line. Yeah, and it's like a big storm going on, and you're.
Rats. Oh, dude. The hair.
Well, and I was hoping you would notice I left it in.
I did.
See, John, I heard you.
Jerry, I'll get fan mail in care of the Groundlings, and I always write back or send them a picture. They send.
Oh yeah, right.
So yeah, I do, John. I just don't write you back. I'm sick of your letters.
Your mom's popping in and out like a ghost.
Yeah, she's like a poltergeist back there.
Oh, that's my mom. She's like Casper.
Yeah.
Well, automatically.
People are gonna see that and go, see. It's the movie.
Is this being televised? Well, you just
thing I told you about.
No, that's my mom.
Your filter, Deanna, can tell when you're looking away and when you're looking at the camera. So when you look at the camera, you're in focus.
I don't know when to get rid of. Is this being filmed?
It is. It's all being recorded.
Well, you guys can edit that stuff. Take the.
Oh, was I supposed to record this, Jerry?
That's right. Wait.
But no, do you want to start over?
No. But man, it was.
You should have said something earlier. No, do we need to change the filter? I don't even know how. Someone set this up for me.
No, it's part of the fun of Zoom is real life. We see each other's houses and family.
Your mom's gonna get a credit. Your mom's gonna.
I'll just show you. I'm bending down to knit a hat. I knit. See that hat? There's knitting. Ooh, pretty.
Well, it's either John's dog or your mom. I don't know.
My mom's so hard to get out of town.
You know, Deanna, you were talking about
Jerry, by the way.
His name what?
Jerry.
Oh wow, cool. So if you say, "Hey Jerry," I don't know if you're talking to me or your dog. Try it again.
Why don't you bring that dog up into frame so you can see what we're hearing? Jerry into the frame.
I did earlier. I'll bring him up. Come here.
I didn't see him. I was looking down at my knitting.
Come here. Come here.
But Deanna, you were talking about how the Groundlings would find the relatability and the heart and the character at the core of something.
That's the training, yeah.
That was thrown at you. And I also, part of that whole thing too, that I think made working with you guys so sweet. Hey, Jerry.
Oh,
cool.
Jerry's camera shy.
He looks a little self-conscious. It's like, people are looking at me. People are looking at me. Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Hello.
I got your biscuit.
Good boy, quadruped. You remembered your seatbelt. Line from the movie.
Well, Jerry, I gotta go, but it was nice talking to you about this. But if you want to talk more, I don't really remember anything else. Except Desmond.
He means nothing else.
Well, you know, you're doing the marathon session and then heading off for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that I remember.
It was just, I mean, no wonder you have a compartmentalized memory of it, because you had that, you were whisked out of town. And then we got together again to do Cranium Command together, and you were right brain opposite Charles Grodin's left brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that played for 15 years.
Thank you for those jobs. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Epcot Center, Tim, but I think they took
it was in Epcot. But it was a 15-year run, I believe. And there's big fans of that now too. So, hey. Now, who is this, Deanna?
This is Biscuit.
Hey, Biscuit.
He does not want to be here either. He wants to go
Biscuit
find
and Jerry, yeah.
Let's go find Jerry. Okay, go away.
But what I was going to say, Deanna, is that you're...
I'm right here.
Biscuit.
I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Bye.
You were talking about that groundlings thing and finding the center. Something else that I think really made your guys' improvisational ensemble stuff worked is, I love recording with an ensemble team, and I think some of the people that came in and read for the role originally that I didn't choose were used to, which is an odd tradition to me, where so many films, animated films, are done with one person at a time. It's like they bring in one person and only record them, and then they'll cut together ensemble acting later on. Now, Jon, we had to do it with you just because of the circumstances and the big break, which was wonderful. But with everybody else, it was wonderful to have some of that improv. And Tim, some of it was within one character, but sometimes I remember that it was among multiple characters, rhythms of whole scenes where guys would find stuff because you were talking over each other and interrupting, and you were giving each other looks across the room, and so that whole thing, which you were used to on. Yeah, so you guys were used to that on stage, and I just loved seeing that happen with you in the room.
Well, Tim and Deanna are the two of the best, and Phil. You had like the top three in the top three of the people in the groundlings. The top 10, of the top 10, they were, up there.
Right.
Wait, Jon, top three.
Yeah, let's keep it. You had me at top three.
No, but Phil and Tim was the two best guys, and Deanna was one of Deanna, Tress McNeil, Lynn Stewart, and Judy Toll were the top three, I'd say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jon, and Jon.
Great, right? Who?
Okay. You.
Yes.
Who was one of the top three women?
You just don't remember.
Well, they were there before me. I looked up to Tim and Phil, and
it's so funny, guys.
I was always known as being extremely talented and one of the best. And
when you guys sound so much yourselves always, and it's easy for me when I'm seeing all three of you in different roles. If I close my eyes, I'm seeing your toaster characters speak in the other movie. So, the old man, Tim, and you're the CIA chief, but I was like, I can animate that scene with Lampy.
It's funny you paid attention and saw me in the old man.
Oh, yeah.
Like a straight part. Very
CIA
very
chief.
Different. Yeah.
CIA chief, but still Lampy at heart.
There you go. That's funny.
Jerry, did you ever have an actress? I forget her last name. Her first name was Nina. Did Nina ever audition?
I don't remember a Nina.
No.
Nina.
John's going.
Tim, why is that funny?
Is your head somewhere I don't see?
Nina's my sister. And it rhymes with a certain body part that Jon loves talking about.
That's just crazy.
Because Jon and I are basically
I didn't point that out.
We are the Brave Little Toaster audience. We are the audience for the Brave Little Toaster.
Well, thank you all three for coming together for this reunion, because you guys just bringing the characters to life was a dream, and we had gone through the speed bump of having other people read and it just being a disaster, and when you guys came in, it just magic happened, and it was so fun working with you.
God bless Joe Ranf. I mean, that was his idea.
Yes.
He guided me to the groundlings when the speed bump hit.
Yeah,
So yes.
He worked on Casper, the movie. Casper, I think he did the animation, some of it.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I was brought in to be one of the ghostwriters, so not kidding.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun to see you and Sherry Stoner on the script that was handed to me by Spielberg. It was like, they did the first script. Here's another one. Here's another. They handed me 3 scripts, and so did some ghostwriting. So I did. Yes, I loved your work, but I got to be a ghostwriter.
Why don't you do a sequel?
What?
Why don't you write a sequel?
I have a.
Now he's an old man and he has to go back to the.
I have a sequel story in my head, actually, and I've done extensive notes on a potential sequel, and I just love that your voices sound precisely the same, and that if magic happens someday and a sequel were to be born, then I know where 3 of my appliances are right now.
Well, you better do it soon.
Count
You
me
never
in.
know. I don't know. Hey, everybody, we can do it.
Deanna
We
just
can do it.
celebrated her 98th birthday.
I'm 98. That's why I'm a film.
It says, enhance my appearance. Click.
We can
All
do
right.
it. As long as I sound the same, it doesn't matter how you look.
That's
Come on,
right.
everybody. Let's do another show.
All right. Well, you can count me in. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
all.
And Mindy and
very
Keith,
much.
you want to throw in any last lines here?
Thank you. I love the fact that you guys were talking about the improv, the magic of the improv that you applied to this. If you could expound a little more on that. I know, Jon, you were there pretty much on your own, but Tim and Deanna, it sounds like you guys were able to sort of play off of each other and kind of banter a bit more, and some energy that was there. Jon, that had to have been a little challenging, kind of just trying to focus solely and not have the energy of other cast members there.
No, not for me.
He's good. He's good.
No, it was just me. I'm good.
That's good.
You're that good. No surprise. No.
Oh, you'll just be alone. All the attention will be on you. Oh.
Oh, too good.
That was fun. He was a trooper. But yeah, I remember.
I just remember he said you can, if you think of anything, try it.
Yeah, and I would have the scripted line and then.
Well, and it didn't make sense because as Deanna, the improv, and Tim, they go, don't write, just whatever's in your head. They train you, just whatever pops in your head, say it, just go.
Right.
Don't try to, so go with the logic, whatever you're thinking, but just let it go. So of course, it's going to come out funny because it's just going to be ridiculous. You're not planning ahead what you're going to say. You're just you get images in your mind, and they go, say them. And you have to practice to learn how to do that. That the Groundlings taught us how to do that.
And it was so
It's
fun
just
to be able to
something,
get a flavor of what you guys did during that process, and then sprinkle the vibe of that into the first draft of writing. And then when we'd get you in to record, then you could continue to riff.
That freedom, having that kind of sense of unlimited possibilities, I think it's clear. I mean, that shows in the performances. You hear it. There's energy there, which is great fun. I think a big part of the.
And Jerry is extremely nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I remember. So nice and smiling and pleasant. So it made you want to, he made it fun and pleasant. And
Well, I remember you guys were just making such magic that I couldn't help but be in a good mood all the time. It was great. And we were, it was like insane schedule. I mean, every day my crew had to do in one day what they would normally do in 2 weeks at Disney. So being under such pressure, but then it was like Christmas Day when I'd be with you guys, because suddenly I'm hearing the characters come alive. And it gave me confidence that through all the slog of trying to get all those thousands of drawings done and everything, we were building it around the performances you guys were doing so beautifully. And, sometimes you have the worry of like, oh, I've got pretty good performances. What am I going to do to save them? It was the opposite here, where it was just like the performances were beautiful. They just bubbled up and were bloomed. And I just thought, well, if we just live up to these performances, it's a home run. So.
And Mindy, to be honest, I don't think I improvised that much, because as the toaster, you have to maintain the through line and make sure all the appliances are in order, and you go on your adventure, and you don't get to joke around that much. So I can't remember really improvising. Maybe a little with, did I improvise a little bit with you, Lampy? I can't remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And certainly, more than anything, playing the moment and playing and,
I know that,
being in the room together and Jerry, encouraging that. That was, I just remember that, like, which, I don't think I've ever gotten a voiceover job since. And, but I have a feeling it's just, that was a very unique experience, being in the same room and doing it together, and the, taking the leash off and go for it and see what you come up with, and we'll try it again, but also being on a schedule.
Yeah, and I don't remember it as being a cartoon voiceover job. I remember it as doing a movie.
Yeah.
Just like we were acting in a movie. So
you're right.
That's a beautiful memory. It's not like, oh, let's go do some happy races. It was hey, we're going to do a movie today. Now, I am truly blessed, and I love you all.
Well, that scene in the tent, especially where you're trying to explain what
I guess so.
kindness and warmth feels like.
Yeah.
You're right. You were more on script, but as Tim was exploring off script and being a little bit more playing with how his character would express things, it's not easy to play the straight person off of that.
Yeah.
To be ready to like be on script with the person who's exploring off script. And you were able to do all of that just beautifully.
Yeah.
It's like a glow. It's like a glow. A glow. It's like you hit the key word for Lampy.
A glow.
And then your thing, I think I know what you're talking about, but you hit that cadence. Remember?
Yeah.
It's like, I think.
Oh, yeah. It was like,
what it was.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was really drawn out. And it's just like, I never anticipated hearing that. And when that moment happened and then you just went into that extra drawn out articulation of the moment, it was just like, oh, it's a character.
Right.
This is a living single character. This isn't average.
Great. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Well, they say that casting is about 80% of the job, right? Getting the right cast placed. And in this film, clearly you achieved it. So bravo.
Oh, thank you.
Bravo to all of you on the screen here with me. You guys are amazing. John, Tim, Deanna.
Thank you all very much.
Sorry about Tim's attitude.
Sorry about my blurring. There we go.
Okay.
Cut it.
It was a reflection.
Deanna, the ghost behind you.
I am a ghost.
Alrighty.
Thank you all. John, I'll talk to you soon.
John and I are in the same room, but he just doesn't want to say stuff.
That's funny. That would be so funny if you popped in
Put
there.
your lingerie on, baby.
Just lean over and look into the screen.
He said, blur out the black background so they don't know you're here. And I said, what about the dogs? And he said, it doesn't matter. All right, John, I love
Put
you.
your pajamas on and shut up.
Glad to see your mom.
Bye.
Glad to see your mom and Biscuit and your dog, Jerry.
I'm pushing leave.
Thank you. And thank you again, Jerry.